Good evening, everyone. This is Gavin Martin here from Cornerstone Wealth. Welcome to the 2016 Centrelink Age Pension Asset Test changes that are going to commence the 1st of January 2017 webinar. That was a mouthful. Phil Watson, the Digital Marketing Coordinator from Christian Super, is going to intro the session for us.
Hi everybody, I won't be able to hear you, but thank you for joining Gavin in this webinar. So I'm as Gav mentioned, I'm the digital marketing person from Christian Super. So always keen to hear you guys' feedback on how we can serve you better. So if you ever want to just reply to those emails that we sent out. We really want to do serve you guys better. So this is part of what we do. No worries. Well, I'm just going to pray for this session and. Yeah, so just join me wherever you are, Scotland, Australia, or wherever. So, Father God, we just thank you for this time, this moment in time, no matter where we are. And we just thank you for technology, and we just thank you for your goodness to us. We just thank you for your presence with us. Father, we just ask for your help tonight, that this wouldn't just be about us learning about our retirement or whichever stage of life we're at, but this would be about your kingdom and the growth of your kingdom. So, Father, we ask for your help for Gav and for everyone listening as well, that you would bless us all through this session. And we just thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Phil. Before we get started, we just need to explain that this evening's presentation is advice of a general nature only. Please take it as that and seek personal financial advice before making any decisions. If you do wish to seek personal financial advice, the way that we assist is we have you complete a questionnaire, then we meet with you for an initial consultation, either in person or via the phone and computer using this type of technology. And that's really about understanding your goals, where you're currently at, and what are the pros and cons of the range of options available to you. If it's warranted, we can also provide you with written recommendations. That's called a statement of advice. We can present that to you. We can help you implement it and then provide ongoing monitoring and review. So that's the full process. You can take that financial advice process as far as you need to or want to. In terms of where we are at with webinars, we started a retirement planning series on the 25th of July with a webinar that is currently, the recording's currently available. Normally we'd follow up with a transition to retirement webinar and then one about capital gains tax and wealth transfer. But due to the changes in government and a lot of changes that have been announced but not legislated due to the election and the announcements of the change there, the changes that were announced there, we have deferred that, and due to the Centrelink changes already being legislated, we thought we'd cover those off instead. So you can look at the last year's recording of these How to Transition to Retirement webinars and also this year's recording of retirement planning. Many of your questions that came through actually asked about how much do I need to retire, how much super do I need to retire. Those types of questions are really covered off on this retirement planning webinar that is available at cornerstonewealth.com.au/retire, along with last year's How to Transition to Retirement and Capital Gains Tax and Wealth Transfer webinars. So they're really good and valuable webinars to review for many of the questions. So what we're covering off this evening is the Centrelink changes that are going to occur on the 1st of January. This recording will be available on this webpage, so cornerstonewealth.com.au/Centrelink 2016. The main central webinar or video here will be the recording of tonight's webinar. But many of you asked about how do I apply for the age pension, what's the process, what's the steps in the process. This is the best webinar or video recording to go and check out. So it's called the 2015 Applying for the Centrelink Age Pension. It talks about the ins and outs of the age pension. It talks about the income and assets tests and how they work together. And the other one is a more detailed one about income and asset strategies. So some of the strategies that we can use to try and maximise your age pension. So those two webinar recordings from last year are good ones to review as well. I've also included on that web page as well, so cornerstonewealth.com.au /Centrelink 2016 is just a video from the Department of Human Services about the work bonus, because I mentioned that later on in this session. So the work bonus video is also well worth checking out for many of you as well. There have been a range of changes that have occurred with Centrelink age pension over the last few years on the 1st of January. The first one was deeming of account-based pensions. Now that's where if you hadn't started an account-based pension prior to that date, then the balance of it would be deemed. It'd be assumed to have generated some earnings. Prior to that, they weren't deemed. We're not going to go into that in any detail this evening. The other change on the 1st of January 2016 was those of you that had defined benefit pensions or index pensions. You used to be able to be a larger amount than 10% of it was not accessible from a Centrelink income test perspective, and that was maxed out at 10% on the 1st of Jan 2016. You would have already seen those changes come through, so I'm not going to address those, but the main change we're going to address this evening is really about the asset test changes that are going to occur from the 1st of January 2017. And we'll go into those in a fair bit of detail. As I mentioned earlier, those other webinar recordings are going to be valuable to you if you are still trying to understand Centrelink and the age pension and how it all works and how it fits together. Those other couple of webinars about applying for the age pension will be really valuable to you if that's your situation. So what's the change? The asset test threshold is going to change. So it's there's the lower threshold at which you will get you're eligible for the full age pension is increasing. So this is going to mean that more people are going to get the full age pension. Some people will have been only getting a part pension, and now they're going to end up receiving a full pension because they previously would have been, say, look for a single homeowner, for example. The current lower threshold to receive the full age pension under the assets test is $209,000. So other than your family home, if all your other assets are under $209,000, then you'll get the full age pension. If it's over that $209,000 currently, your pension will reduce by $1.50 for every $1,000 over that $209,000 threshold. So this is for a single homeowner. Now what's going to change is that from the 1st of January 2017, that threshold is going to increase to $250,000, and this change is going to mean that about 150,000 people will move from being a part age pensioner to a full age pensioner. So it's going to actually benefit 150,000 pensioners is what the estimate originally was. But what it means for those that have got assets so a single homeowner with assets over $250,000, the pension is going to reduce at double the rate. So rather than reducing at $1.50, it's going to go down by $3 per fortnight for every $1,000 over the $250,000 lower threshold. And the same thing will apply for each of the other family and homeowner status. So if you're looking at a couple homeowner, the lower threshold for the full age pension is currently $296,500. If you've got assets of less than that, then you get the full age pension. That's going to increase to $375,000. And if you're a non-homeowner, then here are the respective thresholds of what they're going to move to. The fact that the taper rate doubling from $1.50 to $3 means that the upper threshold of assets at which you can get a part pension is going to reduce as well. So if we look at a couple, we're looking at a couple homeowner this time, a couple who owns their own home, who are both eligible for the age pension, can have assets of just under $1.175 million, and they would still get a part age pension. If they've got assets over that, excluding their family home, they'll get no pension. So that's the current cut-off threshold of which no pension will be paid under the current rules. Now that's going, but due to this increased taper rate, that's going to drop to $823,000. So if you've got assets of over $823,000, then you're going to get no age pension if you're a couple who owns your own home. Now you can also check depending on what your status of either family status and homeowner status is, you can work out what the upper threshold is currently and what that's going to change to in this threshold. So a single homeowner, if they've got assets other than their family home over $547,000, they're going to get no age pension. We'll just look at an example, and often an example helps us appreciate how that will impact. So Ralph is 68 years of age. He's single. He owns his home, which is worth $600,000, and he has cash in the bank of $27,000. He's got a Christian pension of $400,000, shares of $100,000, and he's got a car and some golf clubs or contents that are worth $20,000. Now, for the Centrelink purposes, the house is excluded from the assets test, so we don't need to worry about that. It just is not counted. But all the other assets are. So his $20,000 car and contents, $400,000 Christian pension, cash and shares, all total $547,000. So currently what that means for him is that he's a single, and therefore his lower threshold is $209,000. He's got assets of $338,000 over that lower threshold. So that means he's currently, the taper rate being $1.50 per $1,000, his fortnightly pension will is currently reduced by $507. The maximum pension currently for a single person per fortnight is $873.90, and that means that Ralph is currently receiving a pension of $366.90. So that would supplement his share income and his Christian pension income to provide for his living expenses. Now, what's going to happen on the 1st of July is that the proposed threshold is going to increase. So the $209 changes to $250,000 for the lower threshold. The assets are now only $297,000 over that threshold, but the taper rate being $3 rather than $1.50 per $1,000 over that rate means that his pension is going to be reduced by $891 per fortnight, and as the maximum pension's less than that, he's going to get no pension at all. So in Ralph's scenario, he is going to get $9,500 less in age pension payments than he previously got prior to the 1st of January 2017. So it's a significant change for many people. I think it's about 300,000 people was the estimate that is going to get less age pension as a result of these changes. So that's a single person example, and it's going from a part pension to no pension. The next scenario is we've got Sam and Sally, who are 68 and 72 years of age. They own their own home worth $800,000. They've got cash in the bank of $20,000, Christian pensions of $600, shares of $100,000, and car and contents of $20,000. I think Sam and Sally are not into golf, but they like playing tennis, so they've got a tennis racket there. Again, the house is excluded from the assets test, and so we don't factor that in at all. And so the assets that we do total $740,000 of assessable assets from Centrelink's perspective. The current threshold for a couple, for the lower asset threshold for a couple, is $296,500, which means that they have assets over that threshold of $443,500 at a taper rate of $1.50 per $1,000 over that threshold. Sally and Sam's fortnightly pension is going to be reduced by $665.25 per fortnight. If the current maximum pension for a couple is $1,317, then they're currently receiving $652 combined pension under the current rules. Now, as of the 1st of January, the lower threshold will increase to $375,000. They'll have $365,000 over the threshold, assets of $365,000 over the threshold, and at a $3 per $1,000, that means that their pension will reduce by $1,095 per fortnight. So the maximum pension being $1,300 means that their pension is going to reduce to $222 per fortnight. Now that's a difference for Sam and Sally of $11,000 or over $11,000 that income that they would have been getting annually from the government that they're no longer going to receive. So, and again, another significant change. If you're trying to work out your particular situation and how it's going to impact you, if you are on the age pension or about to go on to the age pension, then this chart attempts to achieve that. So what it's saying here is that depending on your assessable assets, which excludes the family home but includes most other things, like we've walked through in that previous scenario, if you've got assets between $300,000 and $451,000, and this is for a homeowner couple, if you have assets between $300,000 and $451,000, then you're actually going to potentially be better off or no worse off. If you've got assets over that threshold, then you're likely to have a reduction in your age pension. And so if you can look up your assessable assets, for example, down this chart, you can look at the age pension that you should be getting now prior to the 1st of January 2017. And then you can look at this column here to see what it's going to change to. So the biggest hit is to those who have got $823,000 of assets, because they're going to potentially go from a $14,500 pension to no pension at all. And so that's the most significant cohort. The positive thing is that potentially you'll come back onto the pension shortly because you'll be using your own resources to live on. You'll be eating into the capital, which will reduce your capital balance, which will then mean you can reapply for the age pension. Now, for homeowners who are single, this is the equivalent table. So if you have assets between $200,000 and $289,500, it's likely to be a positive outcome for you. So your pension's likely to increase after the 1st of January 2017, or it's not going to change if you've got $289,500. But if you're in that upper threshold where the age pension now caps out, then you're going to potentially miss out on about $10,000 of age pension, which is going to be a significant change. So if you look at your assessable assets and then look at what pension you should be getting now, or estimate of the pension you could be getting now, and what it's going to change to. Now, I do need to reiterate that the age pension has both an income test and an assets test. So you might, depending on your circumstances, you might be tested under the income test. Whichever test provides the lowest age pension, that's the test that will apply. The applying for an age pension webinar recording that I referred to on our website, cornerstonewealth.com.au/Centrelink 2016, that webinar goes into a fair bit of detail about that. So what can you do about it? You're going to reduce your income, potentially by $1,000, potentially $14,500. What are you going to do about it? Well, one thing you can do is you can adjust your spending, so reduce your spending in line with that reduction in income. That's option one. The other thing is you can increase what you're drawing from your income stream. So if you've got a Christian pension or other pension, you might be able to increase what you're drawing from the pension and to make up the difference of this chart tries to explain a little bit of the impact of that. So if you've got $700,000 of assets and you need to come up with an extra $9,692 because that's the reduction in your pension, then that's going to mean you're going to draw an extra 1.38% of your assets. So 1.38% of your $700,000. So if you're already drawing the minimum 5% from this, you're going to be drawing another 1.4% from it as well. So you're going to potentially eat into the capital if you're not earning a return of 6.4%, if that makes sense. So if you're at the cusp of the cap out threshold, the upper threshold, then you're potentially needing to draw an extra close to 2% to make up the reduction in age pension at that point in time. So apart from reducing spending and increasing your withdrawals, you could also, if you're able to and the opportunity presents itself, then you could undertake some part-time employment. Each person can earn up to $6,500 of employment income and it not affect your age pension. So this is under what they call the work bonus, and there's that Centrelink video explaining the work bonus on that Centrelink website of ours, so cornerstonewealth.com.au/Centrelink 2016. Just explains the work bonus, but in summary it just means that if you're a single, you can earn up to $6,500 of employment income each year and it won't impact your age pension entitlements. If you're a couple, you can earn $6,500 each from employment income and it won't impact your age pension. The other thing you can potentially do is some asset test reduction strategies, and this is where there's a range of strategies that you might be able to implement to reduce your assets and therefore either minimise the impact of the changes that are going to occur on the 1st of Jan 2017, or that could increase your pension immediately now as well if you implement some of them. Keith actually asked the question, what's the economics behind divesting yourself of cash assets, that is spend, give away within the limits, etc., to meet the lower threshold? So by reducing your assets, assuming that you're asset tested, so your age pension is being reduced due to the asset test, then the benefit of somehow reducing those assets is effectively for every $100,000 that you reduce your assets, your age pension will increase by $3,900 per annum. That's under the current rules. So if you just pull that back a bit, if you're reducing your assets by, let's take a zero off, $10,000, then you're going to increase your annual pension by $390. If it's reducing your assets by $1,000, it's going to increase your annual pension by $39. So it's, and that benefit, and if you look at what you can get in a bank account, so if you've, for example, got $100,000 in a term deposit, you're probably lucky to get 3%. 3% returns $3,000, and reducing your assets could get you $3,900. Now, I'm not advocating that as a strategy, but it's just highlighting the difference and what can happen by reducing your assets or under the assets test. And what's going to happen from the 1st of January 2017 is that because the taper rate doubles, this $1.50 is going to change to $3, it also doubles the effective return on reducing your assets. So if you've got $100,000 in your bank and that's returning 3%, if you didn't have that asset and you're asset tested, then you would increase your age pension by $7,800 per annum versus getting potentially $3,000 from the age pension, an increase of what's that, $4,800. So the problem with that strategy is that you actually then don't have the $100,000 to utilize. So it's a bit of a shorter term strategy. But let's talk through now some of the asset test reduction strategies that we can apply. Anthony's just asked the question: if your assets are around $400,000 and you are earning $30,000 per annum from this invested, what is the impact of that on your pension? So the question is, it depends. If it's simply just money outside of superannuation, it will be deemed, and so from an income test perspective, on the first 50-odd thousand, it'll be deemed to have earned 1.75%. On the amount above that, it'll be deemed to have earned 3.25%. And so that deemed amount will apply to the income test. The $400,000 will be applied to the asset test, and then whichever provides the overall lowest pension will that's what you'll be. That's what your age pension will be reduced by, either the income test or the assets test. If you are currently if you started a pension and have been on the age pension for since 1st of January 2015, then it might not be deemed. If it's an account-based pension, it might not be deemed. It might have probably unlikely to have much income test implication, and so more likely that it would just be tested under the asset test. We go into that in a little bit more detail in last year's Centrelink webinar. Thanks for your question, Anthony. Hopefully that's explained it a little bit. So what are some of the strategies that you can implement to reduce your assets? Before we go there, I just thought I'd use this slide from Challenger that explains that you're not always going to be income tested. So this slide is trying to say that if you're a homeowner under the current rules, you're going to get the full age pension if your assets are under $274,000 or $275,000, but up to $315,000, you'll be income tested here. So you just got to be careful about trying to reduce your assets under the assets test if you're actually income tested. So if you're on the age pension currently, you can look online, look at whether you're income tested or asset tested, and then you can determine whether it's what you can do to try and reduce either one of those tests. But just be aware that under the new rules, if you're a homeowner, you can have up to generally 401,500 and you'll be of assets, and you'll be income tested, and it's just over that you'll be asset tested. So just be aware that reducing your assets is not always going to be advantageous. So what are some of the strategies? And you need to weigh them up. So the first one is a bit of a no-brainer, but often people have listed their vehicle or bought a new vehicle and updated Centrelink, but they haven't updated them with the latest valuation of that vehicle. So it might have been worth $20,000 when they first listed it with Centrelink, and it's a couple of years later, and it's now worth $10,000, and you haven't updated that. So that's a way that you can reduce your assets by maybe $10,000. The way that we normally do that is just look at Redbook, look at the current valuations of your model of vehicle, and then we generally look at or take the lowest end of the trade-in range of that, and to provide the valuation for Centrelink. It's not the current market valuation, what you could sell it if you had it all maintained and detailed, etc. It's more of a fire sale valuation for Centrelink purposes. Another asset reduction strategy is to spend money. So any money that you spend on your family home, because the family home is exempt from the assets test, is excluded. So if you improve your home by spending $100,000, then that $100,000 it comes off your asset test. The problem is you can't then, unless you sell the home, extract that money back out again. So you just need to be aware that whilst you might be able to reduce your assets, you then also need to make sure that you're able to provide for your longer term liquidity and cash flow needs. And similarly with holidays, that you spend any of your money and it reduces your assets. If your assets are reduced or increased by $2,000 within a fortnight, then Centrelink expect that you or require you to update them with the change. Tony asked the question, can you prepay household bills in advance for a couple of years, like rates, lights, power, telephone, and cash funds placed with utilities will not be treated as an asset under the assets test? I'm pretty sure, I haven't tested that one, no one's asked me that question before, but if, for example, you've paid for a holiday in advance because you're going on a holiday in 6 months and you've paid for that, then that no longer comes up on the assets test. So I assume similarly with utility bills, if you did actually pay them, then they're no longer considered an asset. Yeah. Thanks for the question there, Tony. Peter says the Reserve Bank may lower interest rates to 1%. Yeah, they may lower interest rates to 1%. Yep. I can't remember what that related to. Oh, so yes, you might only be earning 3% on your $100,000 if the Reserve Bank lowers interest rates again. Then that 3% that I referred to might reduce as well. But again, I think I don't think a lot of the deposit rates were reduced that much. Only half of the 25 basis points reduction from the Reserve Bank was passed on to borrowers, so people with mortgages, and part of their argument was that they didn't want to reduce the deposit on the deposit side of things. So yeah, even if they do reduce it, it might not reduce both deposit rates and mortgage rates. But thanks, Peter. Peter H says, is the tax rate on withdrawal of pension at 60 years for non-residents still 0%, the same as for Aussie residents? My understanding is that it is, but you just might want to test that, because I think it can also, if you're a non-resident of Australia, then it also depends on what country you are in and whether there's a reciprocal tax agreement in place. So you need to both cover that off from, whilst you might not pay it on the Australian side of things, you need to also check the country that you are a tax resident of to make sure that there's no implications on their side. Anthony says that prepay strategy, does that still apply to timeshare holiday property? Oh, good question. I can't give you a definitive answer. It'd be worthwhile asking the question of Centrelink, but having said that, I don't think I've seen... I'm not sure. No, I don't know, so I won't try to guess there, Anthony. Best to ask Centrelink that question just to cover that off. Thanks for the questions there. Other asset reduction strategies with the idea that you'll increase your age pension. You can gift money. So if you have you want to give some money to children or charitable organisations, for example, you can gift $10,000 per year. That's financial year. So this is either per single or per couple combined, or you can gift $30,000 over 5 years, and it won't be caught up in the deprivation rules. So if you gift over those amounts, then Centrelink consider the amount over those thresholds to be an asset for 5 years. So you can gift that money. It can therefore reduce your assets, but you just need to make sure that it doesn't. You don't go over those limits. You can go over those limits, it's fine too, but it will be considered an asset of yours. The excess is considered an asset of yours for another 5 years. One strategy that I think was pertinent to, it might have been Lindsay who asked the question, was I think he was turning pension age, and his wife was underage pension age, and the idea was that he would pull out some of his superannuation money and put it into his spouse's name. And the reasoning for that is that if the money in a spouse's superannuation account, so the accumulation phase of superannuation, is not tested for Centrelink purposes, so simply by moving money into the accumulation phase of a spouse who is less than pension age, that can reduce your assets. It's an effective strategy to maximise your age pension. It doesn't work so well when the younger spouse is still earning over the $76,000 mark, which is the current income threshold, but it does work well where both spouses have either minimal employment income or none. You can prepay funeral bonds or funeral expenses, and as they're not tested from Centrelink's perspective either. And the final idea or strategy to reduce your assets is an annuity. Now, in the past, I've not been a big fan of annuities, with the idea, mainly based on two things. One is that you're locking yourself into a particular rate of return, but that's also the positive of it as well. And And due to the complexity of the rules around it and the limitations and reduced flexibility that you have with them, but there are scenarios where an annuity can reduce your asset test as well. So what is an annuity? There are various types based on, or depending on the providers, and lots of different conditions depending on who's providing the annuity, but it's effectively a source of income for a defined period, and that might be a lifetime or that might be a set term. It provides a regular income and it's not subject to market movement, so you're agreeing with the life insurance or the life company that they're going to pay you a certain amount of income, and it's not subject to market movements. Thanks, Noel. Noel just asked what an annuity is, and this is what it is. And it can complement both the age pension and other investments like an account-based pension, so you can have it in conjunction with them. They can be held within superannuation and outside of superannuation. They do have a similar impact for Centrelink purposes inside and outside, so there's flexibility to do either there. And as I just mentioned, there are some social security benefits, so that's the asset test is really the benefit from it and potentially reducing the asset test. There are two types of broad types of annuities. One is a term annuity where you're agreeing on a fixed term, so it might be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or the other one is a lifetime annuity that you're agreeing with the company that they will pay you a set amount for your lifetime. And so they're the two major types. So what's the benefit and how do they reduce the assets test? Well, this is just looking at, and this is from Challenger, who is one of the providers of annuities, or one of the major providers. There are a number of providers out there, but if you say, for example, had $100,000 in a lifetime annuity, because when they pay you back that money, so say, for example, they're going to agree to pay you, that you give them $100,000 and they agree to pay you $5,000 per year, there's a deductible amount of $6,532 per annum. And that deductible amount, which is effectively the $100,000 divided by your life expectancy, and there's a life expectancies table to work that out. But basically over time, even though you continue to be paid this regular amount, either monthly, quarterly, half yearly or annually, because this deductible amount reduces each year, your assets continue to reduce even though you continue to get the amount of money that you've agreed for them to pay you. So that's effectively how it works. The deductible amount reduces the testable assets over time, which then has the potential to increase your age pension. But it depends what you do with the money. If you're just drawing, say, $5,000 out and you put that into your savings account, that $5,000 is then going to be tested, so it may not help in that scenario. So how does it work? Let's look at an example. We've got Tim, age 70, Sarah, age 65, and they're a couple. They own their own home. They've got $250,000 each in account-based pension, so like Christian pension, for example, and they're drawing the minimum payment. Their investor profile is 50-50, defensive growth, and they've got $20,000 in personal assets and $10,000 in cash. They're entitled to a combined age pension of nearly $25,000, but that's likely to reduce under the changes on the 1st of January 2017. So this is what's likely to happen if they maintain their $250,000 account-based pensions each. They're likely to have their their Centrelink age pension reduced by around $3,000 from the 1st of Jan. And so that's in the first year, and then as your assets continue to go down and their age pension continues to index up, then the age pension continues to grow over time as well. You can see the estimated figures down the bottom here. So it starts at nearly 25, drops $3,000 to nearly 22, then it starts to increase again as the pension's indexed up and potentially you're eating into your assets more, or Joe and Mary are eating into their assets more. What they can potentially do, and this is a bit of a complex slide, but if, for example, I've got Joe and Mary, it's actually Tim and Sarah, but you understand it's the same couple here. For example, Tim or Joe, the 70-year-old, took out a $100,000 annuity within his within the superannuation environment, so he could roll that out roll $100,000 of his $250 to an annuity within superannuation. What they're estimating that will change is that after the first year, the pension will reduce less. So you can see the differences here between the annuity age pension and the account-based pension annuity, and so there's a slight difference there of $644. And so that difference over time, as the deductible amount comes into play, increases over time to the point that over 15 years, the age pension difference is estimated in this scenario to be nearly $44,000 in 15 years. Now, depending on which annuity you choose, there is a potential to have the option to withdraw, in this case, $90,000 of the investment after 15 years. And you might choose to do that. But there are lots of other factors to consider, including interest rates. Interest rates are relatively low, as Peter said, that they might actually be reduced further. There's a another cut potential next year. But if you see interest rates rise in the future, and you've locked into an annuity and agreed on a price, and then want to get out of it, if you want to cease it and interest rates have gone up, then you're going to actually take a big hit, because they won't want to pay you out. They'll calculate a lower valuation to withdraw out of it. They do guarantee at the 15-year mark a particular valuation, so there is some certainty here. But if you wanted to pull out, say for example, after year 5, and interest rates had gone up a number of percentage points, then the valuation of your $100,000 might be a lot lower than $100,000. It might be closer to, $60,000. If interest rates remain flat, then it might be fine too, and you might not be impacted significantly. These lifetime pensions can be paid to a reversionary person, so Joe or Tim, I think it was, could have it reverting to Mary in the event of his death, or the death benefit can be paid out to Mary as well. So there's a couple of different ways of doing it. So it's not the silver bullet. It's not a solution to guarantee the best outcome for age pension purposes, but it is an option for you, and it might. Often it just works with a small portion of your portfolio to be put into that. And it means that you're getting regular income. It's not subject to market movements, but it also means that it might assist with age pension entitlements. But you've got to look at your own particular scenario. So considerations, you may be limitations of what you can take out. If you do withdraw before the 15-year period, you've got to withdraw the full amount. You can't withdraw a small amount. You're locking in a fixed level of return, so it's not subject to market movement, which is the positive thing. But if markets are performing well, then you're potentially missing out on that return. The upside is you're not experiencing things if they're negative markets. That's why having a small portion of investments in these types of investments is generally the only way to go. You wouldn't put all of your investments in something like an annuity, I don't think, because of the reduced flexibility. And as I mentioned earlier, an increase in interest rates can reduce your withdrawal value. That's the main content of the webinar. So hopefully that's explained how the changes to the age pension asset threshold and taper rates will impact you. If you want further information, the best two sources currently are those two websites, so those pages that have got a series of webinar recordings on them, so Centrelink 2016 and Retire 2016. You can also call the Christian Super Help Desk on 1300 360 907. You can go to the Christian Super website, which has got a lot of resources, including product disclosure statements, fact sheets, and there's also links to the webinars that we've done in the past as well. Our website you can search on as well for a range of different content. You can email us, or you can give us a call if you want to book a consultation. Or at the end of the survey, if you want to make or get us to give you a call, then just put your phone number in one of the comment sections and we can give you a call. But from now, I'll continue to answer your questions that you ask via the chat section, and I'll also walk through there's a large list of questions that you asked on the registration, and so I'll walk through those where there's not questions via the chat section. So given you're online, ask your questions via the chat section and I'll do it live. Otherwise I'll just go through the earlier questions that were provided. But thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate your participation. Hopefully it's been of benefit. We have scheduled another webinar early September. We're just waiting on what's going to happen with the federal government, and I think they're going to sit. The Parliament sitting, I think, late August, so I think the 29th, 30th of August, so we'll see whether there's any legislation relating to the transition to retirement strategy and other superannuation rules. If they are passed, then we might do the transition to retirement webinar update there. Eugene asked the question, does your income from a job count the same? Yeah, so income from an employment is tested on what you actually receive every fortnight, or if it's a regular amount that doesn't change, then they just take that and Centrelink just test that. But yeah, your income test for Centrelink purposes is made up of income from employment, income from your financial investments, and those financial investments might be deemed, or if they're or they might not be deemed. If they're an account-based pension started before the 1st of January 2015 and you've been on the age pension since then, it's likely that that's not going to be deemed. Real estate investments, they're not deemed, but they'll take your actual income that you're generating from those. So that'll be part of the income test. So yeah, that. All those factor into the Centrelink income test, Eugene. Doug says, thanks for the great summary info. Pleasure, Doug. Thanks for joining us. Tony says, do you supply copies of the slides by email? Yeah, we provide a recording. I don't know whether I did slides last time, but I can make the slides available via that website. So via the Centrelink 2016 website, I'll provide a link to the slides there. Yep, and the recording of the webinar. Thanks, Tony. Noel says, we own our own home but rent it out. We live in our motorhome. Are either of these counted as assets? Yeah, if you are permanently renting out your home, then Centrelink treats it as an asset. You could ask for your particular scenario, or if whether they could still count it as not an asset, but my understanding would be that your home would be considered an asset because it's generating income, and you might be, at that point in time, be considered a non-homeowner, and therefore have a higher asset threshold. But yeah, good to check that one with Centrelink. It's one I haven't covered off previously. Eugene says, thank you, a pleasure. Thanks, Peter, for your good work. I appreciate that. I think, Peter, you asked the question about, I don't want to retire when I'm 67. I want to retire before then. And I was going to say, and I think I've got the slide later on, that's fine. You just eat into more of your own resources if you retire prior to the age pension. So as long as you've got those resources, then that's all good. But thanks for joining us again, Peter. Nice to have you on board. No more questions at this stage. Do put them into the chat section. Otherwise, I'll just plough through these other questions that came through on registration. So we've got Leslie, who said, what is the limit to still get a health card? Well, there's two types of cards. One is the healthcare card that you get when you're on the age pension. So the limit really is those income and asset test limits that are part of the age pension test. The other type of card is a Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, and that provides, if you're not eligible for the age pension but are of age pension age, then it provides pharmaceutical discounts, but it doesn't provide as many discounts in relation to utilities discounts, registration, and those types of discounts. So the healthcare card that goes along with your age pension is a better card. John and Liz, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you being on board. Linton says, do you have to wait until you've reached age pension age to cash out a portion of your super to put back into your spouse's super? Oh yeah, thanks Linton. I think I got that via email, but haven't put it into the slides, so I appreciate that. Do I... or can you do it prior to 65 years of age? It depends on whether you've satisfied a condition of release. So someone satisfies a condition of release, I understand that you're currently close to 65, but not 65 is a catch-all condition of release. So you have full access to your superannuation money at that point in time and can cash it out. If you have ceased employment after reaching 60 years of age, then that satisfies a condition of release and you can generally cash out your funds. So if you have finished work and over 60, or finished a form of employment, not if you have two jobs and finish one and over age 60, then that satisfies a condition of release and you could cash it out. Hope that answers your question, Linton. You can just call, if it is with Christian Super, you can just call them and say, have I satisfied a condition of release? Or you can get a benefit payment request form, the form that you need to complete to withdraw the funds, and it's got the 3 tick boxes there of the requirements to access your funds. So that's another way of doing it. Just with cashing it back into a spouse's a lower age spouse who's under age pension age account, often when we're doing that, you need to make sure that you stay under the limits. So there's currently a $180,000 annual limit and a bring forward rule of $540,000. But on top of that, we've currently got an announcement as of budget night, the 3rd of May 2016, a lifetime limit of $500,000. So we're kind of under this limbo land. So you really can't put in contributions in excess of $500,000. And that $500,000 includes contributions, non-concessional contributions, backdated back to 1st of July 2007. So you need to just factor that in. And then the second thing to factor in when making contributions to super is that if you're doing non-concessional contributions, often we say, often we keep the contributions type separate. So if you've got $100K in your super fund and that's mainly taxable components, and we're going to make a $200,000 non-concessional contribution, we'll separate those into 2 accounts. We won't put the extra $200,000 that we're going to put into the existing account. We'll put it into a new account so that we're not mixing the 2 components together, because once they're mixed together, you can't separate them, a bit like eggs and flour. Just a couple of points there. Jeanette says, with the $6,500 you can earn in part-time employment, is it tested fortnightly or over the year? E.g., if I took up a 2-week teaching job as a CRT, would I lose my pension? Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to explain. I'm thinking about, check out the work bonus, but that video on the website, but it doesn't even explain it that well. What's the best way to try and explain it? Effectively, for every 2 weeks, so you're on the age pension, and you don't work that 2 weeks. Because you haven't worked that 2 weeks, you accrue a credit, or what they call a work bonus, of $250. If you don't work the next 2 weeks, then you accrue another $250 of work bonus. So now you've got $500 of work bonus. If you then didn't work the next 2 weeks, then it's $750. If you don't work the next 2 weeks, then it's $1,000 of work bonus. So at that point in time, your work bonus is $1,000. If you then work and generate $1,000 in that next fortnight, you include both the $1,000 that you've accrued plus the $250 that relates to that fortnight. That means it's $1,250 of work bonus, and you've only earned $1,000. Then you've still got a bonus of $250 there, so you haven't impacted your age pension. If next month you earned $1,000 again, you had $250 left over, $500 for the next fortnight, that's $500, and you earned $1,000. Because you're $500 now over your work bonus that you'd accrued, then that $500 would impact your age pension for that fortnight. Hard to explain. I need to get a video together to explain that a bit more succinctly. But basically, when you don't work, you accrue a work bonus, which means that, so you could say for example, you don't work for a year, and then you decide that you're going to earn $6,500 in 1 week. Then because you've accrued that $6,500 of work bonus, then you can work that $6,500 worth of work, and it won't impact your age pension because you've accrued that bonus. Hope that explains things for you. Eugene says, home content is also deemed. No, home content is not deemed. Only financial assets are deemed. So things like shares and bank accounts and superannuation, or superannuation if you're of age pension age, or if it's in the a pension phase, and if it's in the pension phase and it's not started before the 1st of Jan 2015. So yeah. Eugene also asks, is it feasible to reduce your content insurance to reduce an asset? Oh no. So when you're listing your contents with Centrelink, you do not use your insurance value. The value that you need to use is if you were to put all your belongings out on the footpath tomorrow and sold them, had to sell them that day, what would you get for them? That's the value that you need to give or put on your contents. So if you don't put any contents down, Centrelink assume $10,000. I think that's currently still the figure. But if you put $2,000 or $3,000, then $2,000 to $5,000, then generally there's no problem with that. So it's not what you're insured it by. You might insure your contents for $100,000 or $150,000, but because that's what they would cost to replace. But for Centrelink purposes, it's generally no more than $10,000 is what we'd be saying. Linton says, thanks, pleasure, Linton. Peter says, born 61, am I right in saying that I can withdraw my full super at 60 years of age and can apply for pension starting at 66 years old? Oh, I need to get my tables up. I'll see if I can find those tables for you. Yeah, it's definitely so. It's definitely 60 years of age at which you can access your super money. Just need to check the age at which you can get access to the age pension, whether it's 66 or 67. I'll try and pull those details up. Where would they be? Let me have a look. Now, let's have a quick look through the slides to see whether I've got that on here. Oh yeah, so here we go with the age pension age. So if you were 1961, so age pension age would be 67 years of age for someone born after the 1st of Jan 1957. Actually, Centrelink on their website, I don't think the legislation's passed, but actually saying that it's going to increase up until age 70. So expect this to continue up to age 70 with these staggered birth dates as well. It's not been legislated, but Centrelink are talking about it on their website and on their phone systems, I think. So expect that to increase to age 70. So currently it's 67, but don't be surprised if it changes. And then the other age is the age at which you can access your super money. And I don't think I've got a slide in this presentation about that, but I'm pretty sure it's age 60. So yeah, hope that helps you. Now I need to go back and find where I was up to. Okay, and I got up to Leslie. Thanks for your questions. I'll keep answering as they come through. So I think it's 67, Peter, and 60 years to access your super in the form of a pension. Noel says, thanks. Bye. Thanks, Noel. Appreciate you being online. Peter says, at age 57, is there any advantage of something like the Challenger, say, 10 or 15 year annuity? I generally wouldn't suggest so. I'm just trying to think through an example of where it might be of benefit, but I think you're in the accumulation phase, so you're really wanting to, unless you're wanting to lock in some level of return, but I would suggest it's more so relevant to those in the retirement pension phase than in the accumulation phase, unless you're planning to retire at sort of 57. But yeah, everyone's circumstances are different, so yeah, there may be a reason for it, but I can't think of one at the moment. That's good. All right, so no further questions at the moment online, so I'll just continue through these questions. Do let me know if you have questions, because I'll answer them as we go through. Julie asked, what does the government intend to backdate and how much? I think, Julie, this is all about the I can draw the pen. So it's the non-concessional contributions. My pen's not working for some reason. Can't get my pen to work. Anyway, Julie, what they're backdating is the $500,000 lifetime limit. So non-concessional contributions are money that you're putting into superannuation that's already been taxed. So it's money in your bank account, for example, that you're just contributing to super. There's no tax payable on the way in. The government's proposing making a lifetime cap. So the maximum you can put in is $500,000 for your whole lifetime. You used to be able to do that every 3 years, or $540,000 every 3 years. They're proposing to change that to $500,000 for the lifetime, and they're going to backdate that to the 1st of July 2007. So if you've made non-concessional contributions since 1st of July 2007, then that'll be included within that $500,000 lifetime limit. That's what's going to be backdated. Although the government has tried to argue black and blue that it's not backdating it, but I don't quite understand how they can argue that. Michael asks, is it possible to live on the age pension alone in an Australian city? Well, the age pension for a single and homeowner is around $23,000 currently, I think. And so if you can live on $23,000, then, and I know plenty of people who do and save money, it's definitely possible. It's a matter of what you're spending your money on and how you live and how your expenses play out. But it is definitely possible. If you're not a homeowner, then you'll also get some rental assistance there as well that can assist you as well. So definitely possible. Sandra asks, being eligible for the age pension after many years as missionaries, that was the question. Well, If you've been a missionary and you're coming back to Australia, then you can apply for, and you're of age pension age, and you can apply for the age pension. The only rule that is a little bit tricky is you can come back and apply for the age pension, but if you wanted to then go and do some more missionary work, then you might, without, you need to be in Australia for 2 years, receiving the age pension, before you can go overseas for the longer term and still receive your pension. So there's a 2-year rule that you need to satisfy, by living in Australia, receiving the age pension, for you then to be able to go overseas and continue your work. And then there's also a work-life test as well. So if you come back, you apply for the age pension, you live in Australia for 2 years, receiving the age pension, and then want to go back overseas, you also need to satisfy a 35-year work-life test, which is between the ages of 16 and 65. You need to have been considered an Australian resident. If it's less than 35 years, then your pension might be reduced based on the proportion that it is if you continue to be overseas. If you come back home, then you go back to the normal rates again. Peter says, is pension withdrawal tax-free for Australian residents living overseas? I think Peter might have asked that question online before, but it depends on, within Australia it would be tax-free, but you just need to check with your resident country and whether there's reciprocal tax agreements there. Jeffrey asks, how much can I receive from my account balance without lessening my pension and benefits? I realise I should know, but I don't. Well, it's not that easy a question, really. So if you've got I'm assuming it's a Christian pension, for example. If you've been on the age pension since 1st of January 2015, and you commenced at the allocated pension before 2015, 1st of Jan 2015, then it will be, it won't be deemed, it'll be grandfathered, is what they call it, and you potentially, you can draw up to the deductible amount. So it's probably a little bit technical, but there's generally a deductible amount. If you ask Christian Super for your Centrelink schedule, there'll be an annual deductible amount. If you draw out less than that per annum, then that won't affect your pension. But you can also draw down lump sums as well. So if you wanted, you can draw down lump sums, and that doesn't affect the income test as well. So there are lots of different ways to manage drawings so that it doesn't impact your age pension. Peter says, thanks, that was excellent. Pleasure, Peter. Peter, Scotland, by the new. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate your input and participation, Peter. That's great. Feel free to anyone who, if those of you still online, if you do want to ask questions, feel free to, and I'll answer them. Jeff, so Peter, I don't want to. I mentioned this before with Peter about don't want to retire at 67. I want to retire earlier. That's fine. You just need to have more resources than if you retire at your age pension age. Anthony says, I reached retirement age 7 years before my wife, for whom my retirement age is 67. We don't want her to have to work then. That's fine. You just need to have enough resources to enable you to do so. And you could also apply that other strategy that I think Linton was looking at doing, which is holding resources in your wife's name. If she's younger than you and not of age pension age, the money held in her superannuation accumulation account is not currently tested for Centrelink. So you might be able to potentially get the full age pension rather than a part age pension or reduced pension, and that can potentially help your situation as well. Roland asks, how can we get the pension and health card? Well, by getting the age pension. That's basically the way that you get the healthcare card. Irene asks, coping with unexpected price hikes, e.g. energy bills on a pension. Good question. Saving a cash reserve at some point in time, or you could do drawdowns on super. Yeah, it is a bit tricky when you're relying on a pension and not got much, and you haven't got much of a reserve to rely on that. I know some energy companies are promoting a regular bill. So regardless of what energy you use, they'll pay a regular bill. But I think that's just, I interpret that as they're going to charge you more rather than charge you less. So yeah, I think it's just more about planning ahead, trying to save a little bit of a cash reserve, Irene. So I haven't got much more to add there. Jan says, what about assets overseas, e.g. house? If you've got a house overseas, that's included within the assets test. They include all assets that you have both inside Australia and outside of Australia. Erica asks, will we, husband and myself, be able to access the government age pension as we won't have enough superannuation? If you haven't got enough superannuation, then you're likely to be able to access the age pension, assuming you satisfy all other criteria like residency and those sorts of things. Barry asks, I have an income stream and I am on a part age pension. Will the existing income test still apply after the January 2017? The same income test applies, but the taper rate changes. So it depends on what level your assets are at. It could actually impact you. The 1st of Jan changes, but hopefully the presentation, Barry, has explained that for you tonight. Susan asks, how much money can I have in the bank at the time of retirement? You can have as much money in the bank as you like at retirement, Susan, but if you've got over a certain threshold, like we talked through earlier, you might not be eligible for an age pension, but still it's good to have that much money in the bank. So you can have as much money as you like in the bank, but it will impact the pension if it is higher than the lower threshold. Claire asks, if my total super amounts to 90 grand, am I eligible for a part pension, and what amount would it be per year? Depends on if you're a single or a couple. If it's a single, I think it's around $23,000. If you're a couple, and then depends on whether you own your own home or not. For a couple, it's more like $33,000 to $34,000. Michael asks, I am married, we own our home, November 53 birth date, wife early 57 birth, and already have diminishing transition to retirement for family reasons. I work 1 day a week and get new start for 1 day employer, but the bottom figures, what are the bottom line figures to allow me to transition to full age pension? I think it will be age 65 and a half. I think this is an old slide actually. Robert asks, I have turned 65 but I am still in full-time employment. When should I register for Centrelink purposes of the age pension? Depends on how much you're earning, Robert. If you're earning less than the 76,000 as a couple, I can't remember the singles figure, but yeah, well worth checking with Centrelink whether you're currently eligible, because even if you're working, you can still be eligible for an age pension. It just depends on what sort of level of earnings that you have. Eugene asks, I have been receiving pension for 5 years. Do I lose my pension if I go overseas for 5 months? On the face of what you're telling me, you generally shouldn't lose the total age pension. You do lose the pension supplements. But if you went overseas for 5 months, then my understanding is, depending on whether there's some other unique scenario that you wouldn't lose the age pension, you would just lose the supplements from the age pension. Check with Centrelink though if that's your plans, just to make sure. Eugene also asked, my wife started her pension this year. Does she lose it if she comes with me? Oh, you're talking about that 2-year rule that I mentioned earlier. Eugene, that depends on whether you were considered a foreign resident prior to applying for the age pension. If you were both in Australia for the last a couple of years before applying for the age pension, then that 2-year rule I don't think will apply. But it's well worthwhile checking your particular scenario with Centrelink before sort of acting on those sorts of plans. Keith asks, understanding what pension and benefits I will be able to access if I retire at age 64. If you're currently retiring, your age pension age is likely to be 65. So if you're going to age you're not likely to get anything, Keith, at 64. So it's more likely to be 65 or 65 and a half. Yeah, that table hopefully that we talked about earlier should give you an indication of, based on your assets, of what you can retire on, or what funds you will get from Centrelink at least. Tony says, thanks for the session. Pleasure, Tony. Thanks for joining us and your interaction and questions. That's great. Now I think we've finished all the questions. There were a couple of other questions, but I might just turn off my screen sharing for a moment because I've got it in another spreadsheet. So I'll just quickly go through those. Still continue to ask your questions if you wish to, because I'll answer them whilst I'm still online. The other questions were, just trying to look through the list. I've covered off most of the questions that came through. Maximising my income from pension and income stream, taking account of wife's assets. So that was Campbell asking the question, how to maximise my income from pension and income stream, taking account of my wife's assets. If you're saying that you're eligible, Campbell, and your wife's not, then again, that strategy of holding assets in your wife's name within the accumulation phase of super is a way of doing that. Otherwise, all assets are sort of factored into the asset test. Sue asks, impact of the 2-year residency requirement to be eligible to apply for age pension for missionaries. So if you are overseas, are of age pension age, you come back to Australia, you can apply for the age pension, but and you will receive it if you're a resident. But then if you go back overseas within the 2-year period, then your age pension ceases immediately, and you won't commence until you come back. If you do satisfy the 2-year residency rule, then you can potentially be on the age pension for a longer term whilst you're overseas. Ways to reduce assets prior to age pension, we've talked about that. Roy asks, can I get a pension on my own right without my partner's income affecting it? No, couples are treated jointly, so if your spouse has income, that'll affect the income test for you as well. So that's where it's tricky, where you don't have enough to retire on, but one spouse is of age pension age and the other is well under age pension age. Even if the older spouse who is of age pension age wants to retire, they potentially can't get the age pension because of the income of the younger spouses the younger spouse generates. Linton says, appreciate your help. You're welcome, Linton. Thanks for joining us. There's about 14 of us that are the hardcore finance people. Thanks for staying on board. I'm starting to tire a bit here, but I've still got a couple of questions to get through. What effect on... What are the limits to getting a partial age pension? We've talked about that. How will I survive on very, very little super? That's Kim. Well, Kim, it's good to continue to work if you can. You're healthy enough to, and the opportunity is available to you. And then also, it's about planning well with you maximising the use of your pension benefits. Patrick asks, what will my super amount be in retirement, and will it be enough? It's best to go to that cornerstonewealth.com.au/retire 2016 to understand that. There's the main webinar on that site that deals with that. Managing the finance we have to last the rest of our life. That's Alfred's question. Yeah, that's a good question. Those other webinars are good for that. How can I use, a video asks, how can I use part of my superannuation as cash to reduce home loan? I will soon turn 60. The best way to do that is to, if you haven't satisfied a condition of release, that is, you're still working, you haven't changed employment since turning age 60, then the best way to do that is to move your superannuation money to pension phase, and you can draw up to 10% of it. If you're over age 60, then the drawings are tax-free, and you can draw a maximum of 10% a year and get those withdrawals and use those withdrawals to pay off the loan. Pedro asks, I am 65 years old. I intend to continue working for the next 5 years. How the new rules will affect my financial planning? Well, you need to factor in potentially a lower level of age pension, Pedro. As we've talked about it, they're going to, depending on your sort of asset levels, then it could potentially exclude you from an age pension, or it might reduce your age pension compared to what they currently are. I think I've covered off one more here. Whether to use my superannuation to transition to retirement or purchase a property. We talked about that in previous webinars, so retirement planning and transition to retirement webinars available at the cornerstonewealth.com.au/retire 2016. If you go there, that's the best source to answer those questions. And just the last couple to check, I need understanding around eligibility for the age pension. Again, Centrelink 2016, cornerstonewealth.com.au/Centrelink 2016. That webinar about applying for the age pension will assist you there. Judy, household contents counted as part of assets? Yes, they are, but at fire sale asset levels, so a lot lower than what you would insure for. Well, thank you to everyone who has stayed on board this duration, about an hour and a half. I appreciate your participation. I'm done now and going to wrap it up there, so thanks again for your participation, and we'll get the recording out to you soon. Thanks, Sue, for joining us and your message just then. Good night, and God bless.